Welcome to the Zveda podcast. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Laurena.
We're a community for women by women. We're here to help each other rise to impact generations. Well, hello, ladies. Welcome to the Zveda She Rises podcast. We are super excited for today. This is our first table talk. So we have been featuring on our podcast questions from our audience, and we are calling that segment What Women Want to Know. And this is What Women Want to Know Table Talk. And we're excited to be here with friends. We're here with Yvette and Hannah and Becky, and of course, you have myself, Jamie, and Laurena. So welcome to the table talk.
Yay.
Today, we're going to be talking about cultivating relationships through friendship and dating. And we know that the pandemic has thrown us a curveball. It's thrown us a curveball in so many areas of our lives. And connection and relationship is definitely one. And so we wanted to raise some questions today that I know many of you are asking because you've sent them our way, but also we're hearing it in our own families and in our friendship circles when we're sitting around at dinner, when we're sitting around having a glass of wine. We're hearing some questions that we struggle with, and also just some fun questions that we can really dive into today. So, ladies, today is all about just conversation. And we all come from different perspectives, different backgrounds. We're different ages. Laurena and I truly believe in bridging the generation, so that's really important to us here at Zveda. And so we have that represented at our table. And we want to be real. We just want to have real conversation. And part of real conversation is not always agreeing. So we may not see eye to eye on some things, and that's okay too. So, Laurena, anything else to add? Or are we ready to dive in?
I think before we dive in, I'd love to just give each of y'all the opportunity just to, introduce yourselves, your name, what you do, and then maybe what you're excited about for this conversation this morning, just so our community can get a feel for who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, thank you first of all for having us today. It's awesome. My name's Yvette Wolfe, and I'm in Hutto, Texas. So I've known Jamie for 15 years, my best friend Rebecca for 30. Just to share insight.
We were 5.
I'm 45. I'm a new grandma. I have a beautiful 6-month-old. 4 kids all out of the house, so it's awesome. Yeah. And just want to share experiences with any questions that anybody wants to have.
I love that. Thanks for being here,
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a junior at UT Austin, and I moved to Austin for school, but I'm originally from a small town called Boerne, Texas, right outside of San Antonio. Yeah. I met Laurena through church, actually, just through some church networking, but since then, I've had the opportunity to just absorb all of her wisdom and to meet some other ladies at church and absorb their wisdom, and that's been a constant in my life that has really, really shaped just some of the decisions I've made and has really, really helped me throughout life and in learning how to cultivate connection. So I'm excited to absorb more wisdom and maybe give some too.
Well, I'm sure you'll get a lot.
We have
a lot to say. I'm Becky. I'm 45 as well. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm almost 45. I'm not quite there yet. I have a high school son who's in 10th grade, Hank, and Juliana is in 8th grade. And so we've got teenager issues at home. I have a husband who works for the sheriff's office, so we're waiting to hear how the election goes and if the sheriff gets to stay or not. So that's kind of an area of tense thinking in our home right now. Yeah. Wow. He's also in the Air National Guard, so we're all the things. We're the Blue Lives and the military family. And I just try to keep it all together for them. I'm a design manager at a commercial interiors firm downtown. All right. Or office furniture dealership, and but I get to work from home most days, so I like that a lot. I've known Jamie for 18 years or something like that, a long time.
Let's not add any more numbers.
I know, but it just solidifies, this connection, the solid connection,
absolutely.
And the relationships that have come and gone outside of that, and the ones that stick are the important ones, and that's what I'm excited to focus on today, I think.
Yes, for sure. Well, and just for those of you that might be new to the podcast, I am Jamie. I'm one of the hosts for Zveda. I am a single mom of also a 14-year-old teenage boy, same age as Hank. And I work for a company called Bloom Communications. And I live in Cedar Park, Texas, and this is definitely a passion project of mine and Lorena's.
Yeah, and on that note, for those of you who are joining for the first time, my name is Laurena. I'm a co-host with Jamie for Zveda. And this is one of our passions, just creating space for conversation for women and helping really bring up and rise a new generation of women in the times that we're in. And I work at a digital media agency here in Austin, and y'all are actually in my home today. So welcome to my home. So it's good to be here with each of you, and we want to dive into the conversation. So moving into the first piece is, we want to talk about cultivating meaningful connections. The first question I have, just to kick things off, is what do you do to cultivate relationships with other people? And then kind of follow-up question to that is, do you prefer to have a smaller circle of really close, tight-knit friends, and that's it? Or do you prefer to have, multiple kind of spheres where people are in and out of closer levels of access, and then those that might be more acquaintances? Correct. So, any thoughts on that?
That's a good question, because as older, what would you call that?
Older and wiser.
You've already, you can kind of already hear through Jamie and, conversation of the core group of girlfriends that we do have. Yeah. So to kind of not lose that element, especially at a time like this, instead it's making sure that we're staying connected. Yeah. But I'm a true believer of meeting everybody and anybody. You get a choice and you're kind of in control of, if it's good, bad, or indifferent. I think you kind of, anybody can see like, hey, I've met this great lady, she's awesome, or I met this couple, they're great. And, I think if I'll speak for myself when I say this, but I'll make an effort to really introduce myself and kind of get to know the person. So I think if we make the effort to want to do that, then it's up to us to decide if we want to pursue that. If it's mediocre, then of course not. It doesn't change your day. But if it's something that's good energy, I'd like to be that person if I met you one day or I met someone else down the street or something. So I think I like to leave that open. And most times so.
Well, she's like sunshine, though. She walks around and people just glom onto her like wilting flowers needing a little ray of sunshine. People just see her and she talks to everybody and she's loud and boisterous. And I just watch in awe most of the time because she just talks to anybody and everybody. And she pulls people out of that zombie mode when we're in public.
Okay.
So I've learned a lot from her, just trying to emulate that sometimes. And everybody can use a little sunshine every once in a while, but that's
and I think it's harder with things going on, and it's kind of crazy. People are like, they don't want to shake hands. They don't want to
give a hug.
Yeah, and it's like, clearly I wouldn't hug a stranger, but it's like your natural gesture is, hey, my name is Yvette, and nice to meet you.
Right.
Everything's kind of, a what if, or, everybody's trying to set boundaries and being careful. I'm going to respect yours, you're going to respect mine, so where is that, So I think it's very difficult in that situation, and I'm not afraid to go like, are you shaking hands? Are you hugging? Okay, all right, high five,
elbow bump.
So, but I think, we're having to relearn introduction, and I think it's important. And I don't think it's a problem to say like, hey, are we shaking hands, or something. Yeah. So I think if you're very upfront and personal, it's get it out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, when meeting new people, just to be open and honest and ask them, frankly, like, are you shaking hands? Can I hug you? Like, those things can just kind of bring down the level of awkwardness or angst.
Yeah.
So, but
that definitely, I relate to that as an extrovert, having to kind of find those boundaries and figure out, who is comfortable still maybe going out and about with some in some public spaces, and who is a little bit more introverted and is kind of wanting to stay inside and be a little bit more cautious. And I'm learning to kind of value both sides of it. But to answer your question later, I feel like over the years since being in college, I've learned kind of how valuable it is to be intentional about friendships in a way that I hadn't really thought about in high school. I think in high school, everyone is trying to find out who they are and kind of what sphere of life they're in and what sphere of life they're drawn to, kind of what their passions are. And then by the time you get to college, you know, the little families you find yourself in, like you really do have a chance to get to know people so deeply. And not only the history from high school, but where they see themselves going in the future. So I feel like I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by people that are highly intentional and to kind of try and incorporate some of that into college life. And so it's been a huge blessing to have that. But yeah, pandemic-wise, it's been interesting balancing. Okay, how do we go about this?
Exactly.
How do we keep it all?
So
I think that's really interesting to me because I know like we have mutual friends, Hannah, and some of your close friends are out of college and, you know, beyond that experience. And so I think it's neat that some of the themes of intentionality of like planning time to grab lunch together and doing that on a regular basis to really cultivate that meaningful connection that is beyond just having similar circumstances, right? Yeah. Which a lot of times in college, it's like there can be this intimacy that comes with friends that you're in, you know, like a co-ed like sports group or class together.
Yeah.
And then you feel that depth, but then it's like, oh, well, when that experience is over, do those relationships still exist?
Right.
Exactly.
So I think it's cool that you can pioneer like bringing that intentionality into the college space.
Thank you.
I like to circle the wagons and keep it tight.
Yeah.
I just feel like I've had, just when you open yourself up too much, that people will come in and you think, oh, this is a great person, and then they hurt you. And so maybe that's just my own
Experience.
Yeah, experience, but that I'm kind of guarding myself a little bit.
Okay.
But also mostly because I love taking care of people, and I can't spread myself any thinner than I already am. And I have my girlfriends group, and then I have my family group that we all hang out as families together, and that's. And then my family, of course, and that's enough. And then I've got people at work, and I try really hard to not. And I know this. I don't think it comes off as disingenuous, but I don't like to do things, social things at work, because I think I honestly don't want to get close to people that I may or may not continue the relationship with down the road, just to not have that hurt. And again, that's damaged of me.
No, I don't think so at all.
You know, like I just don't want to
have your boundaries.
Yeah, like I have a friend who was such a good friend to me. This is awful. And one of these days, I tell this story and it's funny, but it's sad at the same time. We were such good friends, and then she moved to the Y in Oak Hill, and I live in Cedar Park. That's almost an hour away. And I said, bye, it was nice knowing you. And that was that. And I thought, good grief, that's awful. But I was like, I can't make it to lunch. I can't do things like that. So I, with the friends that I do have, I try so hard. And we have a really good, Yvette again, she's like the mom of the group, and she keeps us wrangled and in touch, and we have a group chat. And of course, you know, our phones are a great tool with that.
I think I just feel like I do it naturally is calling, texting, checking in. I think one of my biggest things is just following up with family and friends, whether it's daily or weekly. As far as my girlfriends and stuff, is I try to get everybody on the same page, you know, with whether it's, you know, texting or making a phone call, and or most importantly, setting a date. We always have to set a date, and I always remind the girls or friends that I connect with is before we leave, whether it's lunch or dinner, or we always pre-book. So that's very, very important to me. I started doing that little tradition with some of my beautician girlfriends for years, and we used to, just like we book appointments, we all get our phones, we pull them out, and we set a pre-book date for the next time. So I think that's a really intentional thing, which is very important. So then it's on the books, it's something to look forward to, and there's no excuse why you can't make it. So that's my intentional, with relationships and friendships.
And sometimes I step out and check on, one person at a time. And I like to check on people. I like to feed people. So I like to keep it close. And then those are the people that I know that I can just pour my heart out to, not have to worry about them, gossiping or anything like that. My social media is teensy weensy. And I try to I keep it in. I'm very guarded.
Yeah.
Very guarded about that.
You like to protect it.
Yeah.
You like to protect what you've honed and,
I'm like
your
Mama
energy
Hen.
to.
I'm sitting on my eggs, and I don't want no snakes to come in.
That's so good. Well, and this is the whole thing. We just wanted the conversation to flow, and I think I want to jump probably Lorena to the boundaries conversation because that was a whole thing for us. Like as we were talking about relationships, you just hit on it. There's boundaries, and I've learned a lot myself personally about the boundaries to create and how to even determine, like, how do I know if I can let this person in, and then in what level of relationship do I let them into? Work, is one, family's different, close girlfriends is definitely another, and then acquaintances, and to have like these pockets of this is where you fit. And that's okay.
It is okay.
And so I know you had some wisdom around this that I really wanted you to share about boundaries, and then we can talk more about it. But
yeah, so something that one of my mentors shared with me, it's just this simple little phrase that really stuck with me, is he said, Jesus was friends with the few, he discipled the 12, and he ministered to the multitudes. So even Jesus, during his ministry on the earth, had, those boundaries.
Inner circle.
And what I feel like what comes with boundaries, especially when we take time to kind of assess like where people are at in our spheres of influence, it's all about level of access that they have. So like Becky, as you're saying, you've got this group of families that you hang out with, and then your close friends. Those people that you deeply invest in, they have direct access to you as a person and the deeper things in your heart. And I think that's totally valid, totally healthy. If we were just, completely open to everybody, like, then would we really value the things that are inside of us? I don't know, I think that's just something worth thinking about. But the thought of Jesus was friends with the few, he discipled the 12, and he ministered to the multitudes. That's important.
That's really good. I had a coach tell me, it's like the relationship is like talking to a neighbor over the fence or making the decision to open the gate and let them into your backyard. So that's, another just really good way to think about boundaries.
Yeah.
So what's a good question we can kick around about?
Let's see. We've got a couple here that we just brainstormed beforehand, but I think, let's see, how do you place who fits in where in these different circles of influence in your life relationally? Like, how do you assess, or what are your kind of qualities of a person that you're looking for that you would want to pull in close?
That's a good question, but I want to reverse that a little bit.
Sure.
Because it's not like what they can do for me. It's more like, what can I do as a friendship for them? So my friendship, and I think just because in my phase in my life right now, all my kids are grown, they're doing great, everybody's doing what they're supposed to. So it's kind of like, mom's kind of retired now, dad works all the time now. So where do I stand in this situation for my girlfriends, my friends, my family? So I tried to reprogram that since my youngest had graduated high school. And I look at it more as, what can I do for Jamie? What can I do for my girlfriends? Where do my family really need me the most? Because let's be real, family can consume us, even in our own household.
Yeah.
So I think those boundaries is find your wellness in yourself first. That way then you're able to give where you can give when they're ready, when they need you.
Yeah.
Or when your kid's still calling, just need an ear or something like that. So I think it's more for me in that sense, like just making yourself available where you can be, not what they can do for you. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
It does. And I think that's powerful because you're putting yourself in a position to where then you will receive those things that you desire because you are initiating. I mean, you're being in a way, like the character of God as our Father, he initiates love with us first. And so you're setting that as a role model and example for those that you are in relationship with.
And it's like, just to add with what Jamie was just saying, then it's like, okay, I can do this. I'm able to help. If I can, I will, whatever. If you're not and you're not available, then you're not going to open that gate for, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then for Becky, it's like her core element is this. So she's open and willingly to do it. Do you know what I mean? And then the acquaintance parts of it is just kind of like I said earlier. Is it a good influence? Is it a bad? Is it an indifferent? So like then at that point, I think you get to decide where you're going to put yourself in that situation. So that's just that's my thing.
Yeah.
I like the reversal of just the mindset about it, of what is my place in this relationship, what am I here essentially, for, like, what is the goal? And I feel like with boundaries and with like setting those and just kind of choosing who you're going to let in, for me, it's a lot about, do we have similar goals? Do we have similar mindsets? And even if we don't come from the same worldview, do some of those goals and mindsets cross over, even if our foundations are completely different? Do some of those goals and mindsets and ideas about, why we're here on the earth, what we're called to do, are we called to something, purpose and meaning, all of those things. If those are there, if those core things are there, then a relationship can be formed. And I say that because at a place like UT, where faith is a little, it's more difficult to find people, women and girls, your own age, that sometimes you don't always have the luxury of having that same foundational worldview. So I look for those things. And I also look at the way that I think girls talk about themselves and other girls, and guys too, because the way that they talk about them, I know is the way that's like the foundation of how we'll be processing things together. And so if there's anything about, if there's super like, I'm always a little bit skeptical if there's something like very angry at men, just in general, because that's, I don't think, a very healthy mindset. Or if there's something where it's a jealousy or anything like that, I'm just a little bit more cautious about opening up, because I think that the feedback will be different than if we're coming into it with similar kind of goals and mindsets and things. So yeah, I think that helps me kind of determine who gets to be in the inner circle.
I would say I pay attention to the way people talk about their family, their friends, their goals in life, the way that they talk about other people that they know, even if it's not a close friend, even if it's someone that they don't like. Paying attention to the way that people talk about people they don't like and why they don't like them, I think shares a lot about their goals, even more than maybe them saying their goal. For example, if someone is saying that they really want to, so here's a good example. Like, as girls, I think that we all really want to be confident. We want to be, we don't want to be bogged down by insecurity or by, fears and doubts. And we don't want to be envious of each other. It's like, as women, we want to be lifting each other up. And I think that is definitely a goal that a lot of women have. But if we're constantly criticizing other women or putting other people down, then that impedes that goal of wanting to push people, lift them higher. And so if I do hear, and I have been more conscious of it lately, even calling out some of my friends and saying, hey, we don't do that. It's saying making it a collective, and kind of trying to set that example, even a little bit of just being aware that the way you talk about people really does reflect on whether or not it's lining up with where you want to go and what you want to be in the world. And so, I would say definitely I've been paying attention to that a little bit more lately, and it's helped. I think it's grown me and grown a couple of my friends too, I hope. So, yeah.
That reminds me of just our latest podcast this past week, where we were talking about, the idea that women are incubators, and really knowing what we take in really affects that inner world inside of us. And that comes even to relationships and what we allow people to speak into our hearts. That's so key, Hannah.
Absolutely. That's good. That's a good perspective. I learned something.
I know. That's just really smart. It's smart. And like I'm closed. I'm closed for business. So I hope that on the day that I die, the friends I have now are the friends I'm gonna have that are gonna be there front and center.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody new. I'm sorry, I don't. And it's been a long time. I think my oldest friendship, 30 years. And you and other girls, 18, 19 years, something like that. And then my other friends, like 10 plus years. And I think it's just the people who stick it out with you. And again, absolutely. Like it's, I don't think it's a bad thing at all to say you want to be with like-minded people. I love to share our faith, and, nobody's shoving it down anybody's throat, and people are all at different stages in their faith. But if we can be an example to them, and just share with them, here's little nuggets. And then I think I've seen some people change and give a little bit more of their lives to God, just as from example. Yeah. I think we've all seen each other grow like that too. For sure. So, I mean, that's why, and again, like, it's probably not the best thing, I think, the way that I approach things like that, but I'm like, I don't think it's a right or wrong answer.
I really actually admire it, because even when you said when you moved locations and you foresaw that relationship was going to change, there's a phrase that I hear a lot in the young adults community I've been a part of that says clarity is kindness. Yes. And so the fact that you could just see, like, this relationship is going to change, I'm just going to be clear and say, like, hey, this is what I see happening, this relationship's going to change, I just want to give you a heads up. Because if you don't say anything and you just drop that person, they feel dropped and they feel it. So I think I don't think that was horrible. I think that was actually good and noble.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. It's a good thing. Well, and I love that, I agree. Like, I've been real hesitant to open up to strangers. I'm not going to. I just won't, anymore. So I've been, part of creating boundaries is, life experience and being burdensome examples and some experiences and friendships, or something that where you thought it was a friendship or even a dating relationship. Yeah. And just learning that, there's parts of me that are reserved for the core. Mm-hmm. And absolutely. Not everybody needs to know those things. Mm-hmm. That's for me and my close friends to know about the journey that I've been on, and to share the details and the good and the ugly and the restored, like, and who I am today. And that's private. Mm-hmm. And I love that example of Jesus, because, he had the few and then the disciples, and it's like, for me, the few is core. Mm-hmm. And that's where I find my strength and my encouragement, where I've gotten restoration, where I have trust. Like, I know, because I've, like the two of the ladies sitting here know some of my deepest, darkest secrets. Mm-hmm. And it needs to stay there.
Well, and vice versa.
Public doesn't need to know. Yeah. And then I look at, other, like, extensions of that. So, like, knowing, like, my church relationships. And we all have those other circles of friends, but that's another layer where I let that, maybe that group of individuals in at another layer of who I am. Mm-hmm. And the work relationships. Of course, that's a completely different scenario. Mm-hmm. And even my family, I mean, there's things that some people in my family don't even know about me, and I want to keep it that way because I want them to know who I am today, not what I was, and feel, and so I feel like there's no shame in that. Yeah. There's no shame in saying, like, the circle's closed. The circle's closed for business. And because that's an intimate place. And, I had someone ask me before, kind of drilling me on some questions. I said, no, I've made a choice. Mm-hmm. And the choice that I've made at this point in my life, is I'm going to only allow certain people into that piece of my life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think I love that.
I think that's wise. And even just to pivot the conversation a little bit, as I think, Becky, you mentioned this a little bit, Jamie, maybe you too, like, maybe having let somebody in too close, and maybe having had an experience where you felt burned in the past. Mm-hmm. How do you know, or, like, how can you anticipate that before it happens? Right. Or is that something that unfortunately just happens, and that's a part of the human experience that then we have to then kind of redraw the boundary with that person, extend forgiveness if need be in that situation, and then move on.
Right.
What are some of y'all's thoughts about that?
I know. I've felt this way before about people, and I should have listened to my gut. When you listen to your gut,
it's the gut.
If you're about to spend time with somebody that you have let into your inner circle, and you feel any kind of anxiety or discomfort,
like your body's literally telling you that.
Yeah,
right?
or
There's
I just
something to
remember
truly be said.
the phrase,
Yeah,
I don't feel good about myself when I'm around this person. I just remember saying that and going, then why are you going around this person? If I'm going to have lunch with Yvette or Jamie or my friends come over every week for dinner, and I get so excited and I look forward to it, and I'll say, I missed your face, or, that's the people that I want at my funeral, and I know it's like,
it's real.
wear the big floppy hat, and, but that's like, it's hard and fast and black and white. And I just eliminated those people. And my life has just been so much better for it. Like if you don't feel like your whole self around somebody when you're with them, get out, push them to the next lower level. Yeah.
And I've always said that to my girls, all the time, it's like, hey, you get that kind of not so feeling good with that person, relationship, family member, whatever, step aside, just pull away, and just follow your gut feeling. There's something to actually be said for that. And I think it also adds to what you were saying, is that you've done that and you got hurt, you learned from it. So let's not repeat that cycle again. Right. Yeah. Are you a little bit kind of set back? Are you kind of hesitant? But you've learned from that experience. She's learned from it. She's done. You've learned from the experience. You're still moving forward, and there's just different phases that way that I think it's important.
Somebody like Hannah, you still have your whole life to live. You're going to get married. You're going to have kids, and you're going to have.
She's planning. She's planning.
There it is. Yeah, tell me when tomorrow.
And I was going to say, it's okay, slow it down.
I know.
Take your time.
But you have several more phases yet to have, and you're going to move around and have jobs, and you're going to meet people. And I love that you already know the path that you're on, and you're listening to us too. And I think it's great, because you have yet to make some friends that are going to be your lifelong friends, and that's exciting. And you'll know what to look for. Yeah. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's what the whole one of the entire premise of Zveda is, we are here to help each other rise. And right. So if I've learned something, I want to share with younger generations, and really even older generations too.
That's right, it goes up and down.
Because
or
we don't always learn.
Now.
Yeah, we don't always learn right away. And so, if I can help, hey, this is what I experienced. You listen to your intuition. There's no reason to stay stuck in an environment, whether it's a workplace or a relationship or a friendship. Don't stay in an environment that is causing you anxiety. There's so much opportunity. And I think that's one of the things that's so important is friendships, relationships, workplaces. There's so much opportunity in this world. We can literally do anything we want to do. There's absolutely no reason to just stay stuck in a situation that is sucking the life out of you.
Yeah, that is toxic, and it's not better. Yes. It's not serving you better to bring your goodness out. You know what I mean? So,
and we've all done it. We've all stayed a little too long in something.
Yeah, I think something I want to bring to the table, just to kind of throw a different perspective in here, is obviously having wisdom to distinguish when a relationship is toxic, right? Like that intuition, that gut feeling, knowing then when to manage that boundary so that it's different. I think there's also the idea of just Christ kind of modeling for us being the co-suffering servant, right? In some relationships, and maybe this might be kind of more in the family domain, where it's like maybe extended family members that, you know, you can't just totally write them off, you know, like you have to like, you know,
your family.
Yeah, you know, but I think I'm just remembering a conversation that I've had recently with one of my mentors, who she encouraged me just to have this perspective of different relationships, like in my family, where she's like, Laurena, like, I want you to try to value the person's inherent value more than where they're at in their process right now. Because, I mean, in the world, as we know, like there's a lot of broken things and people have had really hard experiences. And so to see beyond maybe where someone is at in their process and still be willing to, Yvette, like you're saying, like, see what they need and how can they be, you know, loved on through a relationship. I think that's also valuable too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Seeing, you know, someone beyond where they're currently at to love them even in that place
I
is
think
valuable.
And just to reiterate on that, and maybe a different word or perspective, is also with the girlfriends that I have and recent girlfriends that I've met, you know, completely different lifestyles, different experiences, and just listening, that is for whatever their phase they're going through. It's just, sometimes it's just being the ear, you know, like just listen, you know, not asking for advice, not asking you to fix something, but it's just, we sense, come on, we're nurturers. So we naturally sense like, hey, something's wrong. Or you know what, I haven't heard from Becky. And I've made this very intentional. Like if I thought of that person and I haven't heard from them, I'm going to pick up the phone. Yeah. Not just in thinking, you're going to take action on that.
Great tool.
And 99.9% of the time it's like, girl, I need to talk to you. It's just like, oh, okay. Or even with my daughters, you know, my girls, I check in on them and they don't get that text. I'm like, Mom, I'm calling you, you know. But it's just being that ear, you know, and just listening and just letting them have their own voice without judgment. That's a huge factor.
That is huge, especially, I mean, I know for me, I'm always wanting to come in and bring a solution and to fix things because I'm like, like the hard, challenging, like broken situations, I'm like, I want to fix this. But I think that's powerful, that is not coming in with a critical spirit to criticize or judge, but coming in, you know, just like you said, to be a listening ear, to create a space where someone can fully be themselves and extend compassion and mercy to them, like in that place. I think that's valuable. So.
Awesome. Well,
you thought of something?
No, I was like,
was there anything that we wanted? Well, maybe we can, I'm trying to think like pivoting wise for the next kind of segment of our discussion. Maybe we can go more into dating relationships and touch on expectations there.
I like it. Do it.
She's all like, do it.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Jamie.
So we're sort of shifting gears here, but all of this is foundational for dating relationships too, ladies. So, but you know, I think one question that constantly comes up for me, you know, in myself, but also in conversation that I've had, is should women pursue? Is it okay for a woman to pursue a man? And we all define pursuit differently. So that's another piece of the conversation. You know, what does pursuit look like? But I wanted to throw it out there. Is it okay for a woman to pursue?
Becky?
I have been married for 20 years.
Congratulations.
So I don't even remember what that was like. So I'm not speaking on that kind of thing.
Think of your kids, you know, think of your daughters. You have a boy and a girl.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And but what I'm thinking is, if your goal is marriage or a long-term relationship, what you do to catch that fish is gonna, that sets the tone, and that should reflect what you want out of the relationship. So if you are gonna pursue him, then you need to know, like, what is that, how is he gonna look at me, and what kind of a partner am I going to be, or for this long, you know, short-term, long-term marriage? Does that mean that I'm going to be taking the reins the whole time, or am I gonna let him change the light bulbs? Even though I absolutely can change a light bulb.
Yeah.
I need him to change the light bulb. So is this me changing the light bulb, and then that's going to set the tone? And if he's never going to change the light bulb for me. Or, are you going to drop hints and just remind him, hey, I'm here. I think it depends. Like how you pursue the relationship. I think you can, absolutely, especially if you're like, I like this person and I really, really need him to recognize me. But you gotta just model what you want your long-term relationship to be. Model that in the beginning part of it, because this is setting the tone for that. And then, it's reality. It'll be more realistic. So
you're saying pursue?
Sense. I say pursue, but the avenue that you take, because I think we're smart, right? And we go, like, that guy is totally right up my alley. I can offer him a lot, and maybe he's got his eye out, or maybe he's not ready to settle down. But like, if you want to take charge and be in charge, and go for it. But if you're a little bit afraid, I think you could drop nuggets and put yourself in his path, and like, you can make it happen, but also make it look like it was his idea, right?
We have to let them lead. We are natural leaders and natural nurturers. And a lot of times we think, I can do it all. And don't you worry about, I've got this, or I've worked so hard to get to where I am and I didn't need any help getting here and I can continue on my way. I don't need you. But men need to be needed, and they need to be masculine. And I think a lot of the messages that we're getting from the outside world versus the Word, I like to live in the Word, even though we have to live in the world. The messages that we're getting is too much masculinity. Was it toxic masculinity? That's too much. And I think that men are just being really put down these days for trying to be men. And we need to let them do that. And there's fairness there. We have our roles that are set aside. Men have their roles that are set aside. And something that Hannah actually said, and I thought, she's brilliant. She said that's the way that God designed it. We were talking about people trying to change that these days, and people trying to for women to be so independent, but we can't be so independent and still lead a full life. We need each other, and we need a partner in our lives. And so, yes, I can change that light bulb. Yes, I can kill that spider, but I need to let him do that. I need to let him make some decisions for us. There was a pivotal moment in our marriage several years ago where I think I was so stressed out. I was taking everything on my own, and we had a conversation, and he said, have you ever thought about asking me or letting me take on some of these worries? And it was just, wait, what? You want to do this? And I'm just used to doing everything on my own. And I did. I started giving him things to do. Here, you go find a new insurance company. You go, take this check to the title company to get the title on the car switched over, things like that. That normally I would have taken on top of all the other million things that I've taken on my own. And then I realized that he's my partner, and we have our roles that are established, and we can be equal. And sometimes I need to be less than, and sometimes I need him to be less than. And if we can shift around each other like that when we need to be who we need to be for one another, sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down, but it's always going to be fair. And I can't presume that that I can live this life with this other person. We can't live parallel to each other. We have to cross paths. We have to support each other. And I've always said, even since we were dating in high school, that I always felt like I was the kite up in the air, blowing in the wind, doing my thing, but he's the guy on the ground holding the string. And I trust him so much because he's going to give me enough string for me to fly free, but he's going to be there holding the end of it in case I get a little lost, in case I get caught up in the, wind. to reel me back in when I need to be reeled back in, to keep me safe. And so we have to let our men cover us, let them feel like they're keeping us safe, so that we can be more free to do the things that we want. And I think that in that letting go, then we're a little bit more free to live. And again, that marriage is meant to mirror heaven. It is meant to give us a little glimpse of what heaven is like. And so in our own lives, we have to give up our wants and our desires and everything to God for him to take care of us so that we can live more free. We don't have to live in fear when we've given everything to God. So on a smaller scale in our homes, we're letting our husbands, our partner, because sometimes it switches, we're letting that other person in our life take on our worries for us so that we can be more free. And I just think that that's something that we've gotten away from these days. And I think that it's such an extreme pendulum shift that it's going to come back. Talking to Hannah today was amazing because she's that next generation, and I see her having those same thoughts and recognizing this is not right. And I'm hoping that there's going to be more people like her rising up soon, so that we can kind of get back, like she said, like God designed it.
You have any thoughts?
I'm looking at.
Come on,
Hannah, what do
I'm
you
like
do?
chewing on it a little bit because I honestly have not thought about. I mean, I think for my like knee-jerk reaction is to just say like, yeah, I think that they can, and I think that you paying attention to the fact that people define pursuit differently is the key. Yeah. Because if pursuit looks like you texting him all the time and him not responding, or you showing up in places where he is and like trying to kind of merge your like kind of meld your life a little bit in the same way, then like what I mean, kind of like he's been going here, I'll go there a little bit. I think that like that's I think it's normal, but I just think that like it can be risky if in doing that. I guess my this would be my. It's so funny because I'm thinking I have so much. I'm thinking like for girls that do pursue, I have so much respect for them because what that means is that they have the ability to face rejection if it comes.
Oh, girl.
In ways that guys do, because guys, I mean, if they're out there asking girls out and getting rejected, and every now and then having to deal with that, and if you say, well, girls shouldn't pursue, it's like, okay, well then there's a less chance that girls are going to get rejected. So for the girls who do say, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna screw whatever old mindsets, I'm just gonna give it a shot. Then and they do try to initiate and show up in those places and try that. If it works, then like more power to them, But if it doesn't, then I think it might be harder sometimes for girls because
a little more sensitive.
Yeah. I mean, we might feel that. I don't think maybe more strongly. I think rejection still stings, but I wonder if perhaps for girls it might sting just a little bit more, if that makes sense. Yeah. And what that process would look like, and trying to figure out if you have people like, around you, women who are saying, hey, it could be because of X, Y, and Z, it could be nothing to do with you. Move on, forget about it, keep going. It could be for something, then you can survive, and you can look at the list of things that your mentor had you write that you love about yourself, and all that, and it's all fine, and you just keep going, right? But if there's not that to catch your landing, and you just keep fishing, what are you trying to, like, are you trying to fill something, or are you coming into it as a healthy person, Yeah. So I think that would be my question in terms of, yes, girls can pursue, but just do it with wisdom, and with other women around you to
support.
To support you. Yeah. So I don't know.
That's true.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think some of my thoughts probably are aligning to some degree with what you said, Becky, of like, defining pursuit as the woman, planning the dates, asking the guy out, kind of more of like a traditional kind of definition of pursuit is what I'm thinking through, like that lens. I think if the woman primarily takes that role, it does set a precedent. It teaches the man that the woman is going to be leading in these certain ways. And I think something that's key in the current culture that we have is giving men the opportunity to lead and the opportunity to, grow in planning certain things and thinking ahead and and asking themselves, well, what do I envision for this experience, and what do I want to invite this girl into? So that's kind of like more of the perspective that I have, at least. But I do think it is very difficult for a lot of women to just be like, well, I'm just waiting, for a guy to ask me out.
Yeah.
I think that's a really hard place to be in, and that's a lot of what I hear.
You gotta make things happen. You gotta make it happen.
So I think I like what you said about like, dropping little hints here and there. Or Hannah, what you said about, putting yourself in environments where you're around him, where he can notice you. I think there are proactive things that women can do. But I think the traditional, I'm going to be leading and doing all the things, it just doesn't give the man the opportunity to rise up to the occasion. That's my perspective.
But so the reality of that question, though, is it's altered right now because all the girls are on dating. I mean, everybody is on dating apps right now because I think, and if you're going to school and you're going to classes and you're in a school environment, it's probably a little bit easier, but we've been working at the same place for X amount of years, and we've already seen every dude, that's there I'm saying we, I mean, people who are looking at you, your options are closed. So now it's a dating app conversation. I have friends on dating apps, and it is painful. There are some weirdos out there, and then there's, hey, I had a great date with this guy, and he said, I want to see you again, and we texted for 3 days, and then he's gone,
just ghosted.
And so that the power to pursue in this scenario is so different. I mean, it's hard. It is hard.
Whatever happened to just meet him? Do you like me? I like you. It's like those commercials.
I know. Write a little note. Yes
or no. X or Y or yes or a heart or.
It's a whole new dynamic. I just, God bless you guys who are on dating apps and stuff. Good grief, I had no idea. I'm looking at you, Jamie.
It's funny because
I pressure her a lot about that, by the way.
What'd you say, Jamie?
What want to say about pursuit?
Yeah, and then just as we're talking. Yeah.
Well, so I like what Becky was saying, and that. And Yvette, we've had, like, oh my gosh, we've had so many conversations about this. But I think, like, for me, it's different because I'm in my 40s and I'm a single mom. And so my life circle, like, where I'm positioning, like, I work for a small company. We're not traveling. Like, I go to a small church. Like, there's not opportunity.
You go to HEB. All cute in the produce aisle.
So that's the trick.
It's a challenge.
And so it's funny that when Hannah, you were talking about, like, putting yourself out there and getting rejected. I did that.
Yeah.
And you know how freeing that was? Because I never did that. I never asked a guy out.
Yeah.
And because I was sort of brought up to believe that's not appropriate. That's not what you do. And I have thoughts about that too. Like, I agree. Like, we don't want to completely take the reins because it does set the stage, right? But I got brave and I asked a guy out.
That's awesome.
And he said no. And gave me the reason, and I was like, okay.
And you're still here.
That didn't kill me. And then I was like, I asked a guy out. And this has been.
And I got rejected.
And he said no. So the funny part of that was, like, I was talking to another single friend at the time. She was kind of coaching me along. I told my son. We had a conversation about it, and he was like, no. He said no. Like, Mom. Totally his loss. That's sweet.
Hyping you up.
But so I think I like the thought that we should give hints, like, because I believe that men are challenged right now too. Yeah. In our culture, a guy is scared to approach a woman.
Especially when she says no to a first date. It's like,
well, yeah, and it's like, if you're confident, if they're seeing, like, oh, this is a confident, beautiful woman, I'm a little intimidated, and then have all this going through my head, like, oh, you know, am I going to get rejected? But also, is she going to think I'm coming on too strong? Like, I believe that men think like that too. My son, he's only 14, he's about to turn 15, but we have a lot of deep conversations. That's good. And he shares a lot of what's going on in his generation. And one of the funniest things he said was, I just don't understand what the big deal is. Why can't either just say, hey, I like you.
Yeah. He's talking
do you want to hang out? Do you want to go to the movie? Do you want to go grab coffee? He's like, what's the big deal?
Everything is, you know, code and emoji and question mark.
The
It's
hard
just like,
part is the connection you feel from like texting someone or like even exchanging content. That like builds a connection that is so different than in person, but it's hard to. It adds another layer. It does, and it's a generational experiment, right? Like we don't fully. I think we're figuring it out too. Right. We don't know. Right. So that's another like place maybe I need to learn boundaries, what that looks like too.
I think that's interesting what you said is like we're exchanging content, but it's almost like just the natural process of just forming connection. If it's only over a technological platform or device, it kind of cuts out some of that like, oh, we're going to meet for coffee and like, oh, that's how tall he is, or oh, like.
That's how short.
Maybe.
I think it's good in that way because then maybe beforehand, if you've exchanged content, you're like, we have these things in common. Then when you meet, it's like, well, yeah, he's this, maybe I prefer a little taller or whatever, but we have this in common. So I'm going to overlook that.
That's true. So maybe some of the physical things are gone.
Some of the, well, in the dating apps, I don't think those kind of counteracts that because those are like, I think half of why people sometimes. But I will say personally, I have been shown a dating app, what it was like, and I just did not like it. I didn't. I thought it was.
Seen all my girlfriend's friends.
I saw it, and
my 20.
I mean, it was Tinder. It was Tinder. So I know that's a very bad example. I know there's other ones that are healthier, but that one I was just like, I'm out. And then I watched a YouTube video of a French philosopher saying stuff about romance and kind of the spontaneity of it, and that I was like, okay, sorry, but I don't know why, but right now I'm like not dating app in that world.
That's
so
okay.
I don't know.
There's no manual that says you have to do it because everybody else.
I think it's
I
smart.
just not yet.
I'm with you. Like and again, we're totally different generations, but I've signed up for a few, and it just didn't set right. It's that whole gut, like that intuition, and like I look and I was like, this is all that I'm getting out of this is physical. You're choosing based on what someone looks like.
Yeah.
And it's hard because it's like, well, what else is there to go on?
Well,
in this app, in this photo,
because that's what they do right now. Everything's technology, everything's high tech, and in retrospect to what Jamie's describing, like you're shopping physically on your vision.
Consumerism.
But at the same token, and I always say, I've mentioned this story 100 times. I had a client of mine forever. She was previously married 25 years. She was done. Like there was no love in her relationship, and she for 25 years she just stuck with it because that's all she knew. Fast forward. She was like, you know what? I am 50 years old. I should be having a good time, meeting people. You know, her sons were grown, whatever. She went all out, build a profile.
She was divorced at that point.
Oh, totally. Totally divorced.
Let's just make that clear.
She was divorced and everything, and she made a profile. She went out on dates. She met people. Bad experiences, good experiences. 5 years later, she met this amazing guy online. They had so much in common. They just recently got married and they moved to Florida. So it's just kind of like it's one extreme to the next. But she was 50 and she was just like, you know what else do I have to lose?
Yeah.
I did this, it didn't work. So she just went with the intent of just meeting somebody. And if it didn't work, it didn't work. And she had that confidence.
Kiss a lot of frogs, you know. I mean, and you should have some physical attraction.
Of course.
Yeah.
So maybe there should be a dating app where the picture is like, I don't know, arm's length away or something.
It's like a little blurry.
Yeah, it's a blurry, like they put a filter over it.
Filter.
Like that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I thought you were saying like 6 feet different distance.
Oh,
you know?
no. Sure. Oh,
Show
my
up
God.
6 feet.
No, girl, bring it in, bring it. No, I don't know.
That's tough.
That's the dating app thing. Like, I wish we could solve this issue right here at
I
this
know.
table and like fix it.
It is challenging, though. I think something that all of us have brought up to some measure is how do you actually cross paths with people that are not in your normal spheres of influence, you know? Like, for even back to like the friendship kind of part of conversation, if you want to meet new friends, but you know you've got the specific things that you're doing repeatedly each week, how do you cross paths with people, and how does that cross-pollination happen?
Yeah, you have to, I mean, you know, one of the phrases that I think Yvette always uses, you have to put yourself out there. You're not putting yourself out there.
In
So,
different
how
and new
and it's like, well, you know, like conferences, like that was canceled for a bit, but some of that's starting back up,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true, yeah.
and so finding things of interest, whether it's
like
a club,
a hobby,
like a running club or a biking club, like whatever you're into, or
But what if I'm a homebody and I just want to be home all the time, but I want to be home with a cute guy? Like what? You know?
Put it on your portfolio.
Right?
Homebody. Homebody guy.
are you a homebody guy?
Start knocking on people's doors. Hey, are you single? Sorry.
No, just go to lunch with Becky and she'll like, you know.
Oh, I try to
she'll
think of
go
a waiter
waiter.
for you. Hey, I'm always thinking. I'm always trying to people. I'm the worst though. I've tried to set people up together and it's never worked. So don't listen to me.
So on that, or did you have something, Jamie?
Well, I was just going to say, just like with like things opening up, it's like trying to find opportunities where there might be like-minded people.
Yes.
You know, whether it's some sort of like inspirational conference or a club, like we mentioned, and you know, that's one way to put yourself out there and not have to go the dating app route. And I also think like my faith, like the Lord knows.
That's true.
He just knows me. And he knows all of us.
Yeah.
Like to our core. We cannot hide anything from him. And he knows that dating apps aren't for me. And so he's literally going to have to put me in the right place at the right time. We have that conversation.
Good.
You know, because
you can ask for it.
I think that's the other thing is recognizing, you know, we can ask God whatever we want to ask him.
Yes.
And he wants to give us good things.
Yeah.
So
I think that's so true, and that's even just like part of my story is I remember last like few years with my previous roommate, we were always talking like, oh, we don't want to get on like dating apps or things like that. It's just like no, and I just want to meet somebody in person. And so that was just something that I asked the Lord for. I was like, God, like I really desire for the natural process of getting to know somebody in person, all the awkward things, like I want it all, you know, like, and at the time I was going to a church here in Austin, so I actually met Hannah in South Austin, that they do a young adults community where many different young adults from all over different churches all over the city come together. And my perspective wasn't just, oh, I'm going to find a guy. I wasn't even thinking that at all. I was like, I just want to meet people. I want to invest in people, build friendships. And that's actually where I met my boyfriend, Micah. Yeah. Like I met him there. He went to a different church. I went to a different church. We met there. Like, you just never know what God has up his sleeve, you know?
So did he pursue or did you?
Oh, that's a good question. Good one.
So yeah, just a little bit of our story. And I had Hannah actually over for tea.
I watched the whole process. Yeah. I had to like keep up with it.
I was like, I can add. No.
Yeah, I'll keep it super short. But yeah, so after I had walked up to a friend at this church gathering and I was saying hi to her and she was talking to him and I was like, hi, what's your name? I introduced myself. I love like talking with people. I'm kind of like you, Yvette. Like I just like, just love pulling people in closer. And found out that he worked at Apple. And I was like, oh, he has a nice smile. You know, I was just thinking like, nice person, awesome. Rest of the evening, talk with other people. And what I normally do was I Facebook message people that I meet that are new, just say, hey, it was good to connect with you. Would love to see you again because I want to kind of pull together community. That's just something I do with people in general.
Right.
And he was already thinking about, I don't know if I want to like Facebook message her to like see if I can ask her out on a date. But I had messaged him just my normal kind of friend thing that I do. Yeah. So he took that as like kind of a, you know, a sign from God, like, okay, I am going to ask her. So he then asked me to lunch. We got lunch together. That was not like an official date. And then at the end of that date, we were chatting, and he was kind of getting a little nervous, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what's happening? And he was like, so I really enjoyed our time together. Like, I would love to see, can I take you out on a date? And at first I was like, let me think about it. And he's like, okay. And I was like, this is what's cool. But then I had this thought. I was sitting next to him in his truck, and I was like, okay, let me process here in front of you. Like, this is the Lord, I feel like, because I, don't.
Lorena is a processor.
I am a processor. Yeah. So I told him, I was like, look, let me be real. I was like, I don't normally get asked out, so this is new for me. And I was like, I just met you, but I was like, but you know what? I need to grow. So yes, you can take me out on a date. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah. And so then he planned a date for us. It was our first date. We've been dating since then, a year and a half later. But I think that's a good segue maybe to the next question is, should you say yes to a first date? Obviously, if homeboy's not creepy, right? Like, you don't want to put yourself in an unsafe situation.
Right. You're like, sure.
Yeah, right. Like, definitely practical wisdom there. But I don't know, what are y'all's thoughts on just saying yes to a first date, even if you may not be physically attracted to him, or maybe you may not know, or you just don't know the person, and you can, create the space for opportunity to connect. What do y'all think about that?
Hard yes.
Should women say yes to the first date?
Absolutely, I say yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even when you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, that movie, Yes Man, with Jim Carrey.
I love it. Hilarious.
Because I'm like, we should, not to that extreme. There's, we should just say yes to new things because it's not going to hurt you.
It's growing.
It's not going to make you do something you feel comfortable with doing. It's not outside of your morals, right?
Yeah.
You're good. Just hard yes.
And I do want to say, sometimes I think women can get into the mindset of I'm being mean if I don't say no. And so I feel like if that's the case, say no. I would say if you know you're
obligation.
Because you know when your heart's feeling bruised, right? Like I feel like when Lorena's all about intentionality. I mean, all of you guys are, but especially it's all about your intention. So what is your intention? Are you trying to rebound and remind yourself that that you just want some attention for a night? Because if that's the case, you're just going to exploit someone who you can see, they're interested in you. I just want some attention. I'm going to go on this date. Then I would say maybe not, maybe in that case, say no for you and for him. Yeah. But I think that to say no just because, physical or something, or you just don't know, then but don't, as a woman, I would say to every woman listening, don't feel like you always need to say yes, if that makes sense. It's not mean to say. No,
well, and it goes back, if your gut just says I'm just not ready for that. I'm flattered, thank you, but I'm just not into it right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think even before meeting Micah, there were some first dates that I went on with dudes that I was like, I don't think I'm interested, but I'll still give him that opportunity because it does affirm a man's masculinity. It just does, does something for their confidence. And I feel like, again, new opportunity to have a conversation that might be outside of your comfort zone. And then also it's a good opportunity to just be real with how you feel and to tell him no. If he asks for a second date, that's a great skill to have. To be able to just be honest with how you're feeling.
Easy.
Yeah, I think so. And I think for me, I have definitely boundaries, boundaries around age. And there's a few individuals that have asked me, or either through someone or directly asked me, and I'm like, 20 years for me is a big jump at this point.
You're like, my son's 14.
So I'm looking for people in my generation, so that's, I would say no to that because I want to respect that person. Like, hey, I'm really flattered that you think of me that way, that you would ask me, but I'm going to decline. Thank you.
That's a good point.
So, and everybody has their own, and I think it's interesting because I traveled to Mexico every year after Christmas with some friends, and we stay at a wonderful place there called Via Amor del Mar, and one of the owners, her name is Cindy Bouchard, and she shared her story with me, and this has been a couple of years ago, so the second year I went. And she's like, I think it's important for you to make your list. Not that you're going to be stuck to that list, but that what are the attributes, especially at this point in your life, what are those attributes that are important to you? There's nothing wrong with defining here's what is like a non-negotiable. Here are those core things, the deal breakers, and then there's going to be some preferences on there that you can then choose. Yeah. Is this worth to set this preference aside in order to be in a relationship? Or is that preference now a non-negotiable? Yeah. So I think that's important too, like not just going into, oh, it's a dude. You know, like, well,
there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of attributes to someone that's I think you shared really early on that is this aligning with I think you were talking about it in the friendship piece of our conversation, but does this align with my worldviews and are we going to be able to negotiate these things or not? You know?
It's true. That's very true. Yeah. So I know we have just a few more minutes left. Jamie, any thoughts on kind of the last piece that we want to talk through? You want to just give an opportunity to kind of round things out with thoughts, just any kind of final thoughts on cultivating connection or maybe even better said this way is, what do you wish the women that are part of the Zveda community would know about cultivating genuine or meaningful connection with people? Like what is one of your like go-to thoughts or like nuggets of wisdom that you'd want to give our community?
Woo.
I know it's big.
I think it's big and it's harder to answer that just because with everything going on in general. So I think overall with everything going on and as busy as